Let's bring in our guests from West Jerusalem. We have Alon Liel, the former Director General of Israel's Foreign Ministry. Daniel Seidemann, he's the director of the Israeli NGO Terrestrial Jerusalem, and writer and Middle East analyst Seth Frantzman. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Daniel Seidemann, after this embassy move, what does your gut tell you? Prospects of peace and justice in Israel and the Palestinian territories, they are what?
The prospects are nil for the foreseeable future. The United States has disqualified itself as the steward of political processes since 1967. Virtually the exclusive platform for addressing the core issues between Israelis and Palestinians was under American leadership since the Rogers Plan. The United States is clearly weighed in as a partisan. The United States is gone as a broker in this conflict. They will not be back anytime soon, and there's no replacement. And the ultimate destabilizer in Jerusalem is hopelessness, and hopelessness is as thick as I can ever recall.
And Seth Frantzman, this seems to be a deal for the Israel of the settlers, the US of the evangelicals, and not many others in between. Is that accurate?
Well, I think the embassy move is a good deal for all of Israel. I mean, Israel's capital has been in Jerusalem since 1948. So I think that even in the 1950s, you had several other countries that had embassies in Jerusalem. And you have other countries like Russia that recognize West Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. So I think it's about a lot more than that. I think it's about Israel, it's about America. And I think in the end of the day, it will also be good for peace.
And Seth, given that besides Guatemala and a couple of others, nobody else is recognizing it, everybody else sees it as problematic and illegal, does that not bother you?
I think a lot of other countries have said actually the opposite. They've said once there's a peace deal, it's certainly not illegal. Many other countries say that basically they're totally open with recognizing West Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. They'd just like to see a peace deal. So I think that it may be, of course, problematic, but I think that most countries will eventually come around, and eventually there will be a peace deal, probably with the Israelis and the Palestinians, hopefully in the near future, but if not in the near future, eventually.
Okay, so let's ask the former Director General at the Foreign Ministry, Alon Liel. This is unfolding in the year 2018, on the 70-year anniversary of Nakba for Palestinians, independence for the Israelis. Are you as optimistic as Seth Frantzman? He seems to think everything's going swimmingly.
No, I'm very pessimistic. I think this American move is one-sided, too early. We saw the result 2 days ago with 60 Palestinians killed on the border. I think it ruins the chances for an agreement, ruins the chances for peace. And I think the international community, the rest of the international community, especially Europe, should speak up and say what they think about this move. Unfortunately, this is not happening. And I agree with Daniel. Things are stuck, very depressing. Israel is celebrating, Palestine is humiliated, and the bigger this gap between the Israeli celebrations and the Palestinian humiliation, the more violence we'll see and the less possibilities for talks.
Interesting that you put it that way, Israeli celebrations and Palestinian humiliation. Daniel Seidemann, when you saw the US ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, defend Israel's actions in Gaza, and it's hard to separate out the embassy move from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and the violence we're seeing on the border in Gaza, when she said no country in this chamber at the Security Council would act with more restraint than Israel has, how do you feel about that?
I think there's a connection between that statement and the move of the embassy. And the message that the United States and the Trump administration is sending to the Palestinians is Israelis matter, Palestinians don't. Palestinian lives don't matter. I'm a retired major in the Israeli Army Reserves. I'm proud of my military service, and I'm ashamed of the way that this is being handled. Haven't we heard of crowd control? Is the only measure the lethal measures? Is it conscionable that there will be 1,300 people on one day suffering wounds from live fire? Haven't we heard about water cannons? I'm deeply disturbed by this, and I think it is only fanning the flames and sending the message to the Palestinians, abandon all hope.
Seth Frantzman, would you agree that there's a massacre taking place in Gaza?
I think large numbers of people were shot with live ammunition, and I think since March 30th, about 110 or 120 have been killed. So I think that Israel should examine that. I think the Israeli High Court had a petition by human rights organizations to look at that. And it's unfortunate, actually, the High Court has not come down with a ruling, and it's unfortunate that there's not been some more discussion, I think, in the media in Israel and also in the government circles about whether or not this has been handled the best way for the last 8 weeks. I think that Israel had plenty of time to prepare for what happened on May 14th, and it appears to be that probably not enough preparation or thought was given to what was going to happen that day.
Doesn't it make it easier, Seth, given that the U.S. has given Prime Minister Netanyahu and the IDF a blank check to do whatever the hell they want to do? So why be self-critical? Why need to examine? You've got the superpowers backing.
Well, I think if you saw today, the Trump's representative, Jason Greenblatt, is actually in Qatar, in Doha, meeting today with Qataris to talk about the Gaza situation and talk about peace. And I think you're going to see actually the Trump administration will put forward a peace plan. And it will be up to Israel, of course, and the Palestinians to talk about that. But it's quite clear that if you look from Jason Greenblatt's Twitter account and the recent public statements that he's written and published in Arabic media, that they seem to be serious about doing something soon in terms of putting forward a peace concept.
Alon Liel, tell me why you don't trust them with a peace plan.
I think the United States and the President Trump have disqualified themselves as potential mediators. The Palestinians said they will not have them as mediators, and Israel said they will not have any other mediator. They will not allow any other mediator. So we don't have a mediator. And the question is not if we have partners, we don't even have a table. So we are very far away from any talks. And I don't think the one-sided American administration has the right to put on the table a plan after they moved the embassy to Jerusalem. But I want to say something about the shootings. Beyond the issue of the killings, the humanitarian, human rights aspect of it, it is foolish on behalf of Israel to behave in such a way, because this is again triggering international criticism that didn't exist in the last 18 months since Trump was elected, or since the December 2016 2334 UN Security Council resolution. The world was completely silent, and because of the Trump backing, nobody challenged it. And now it's coming up again, the comparisons of the 14th of May to the 21st of March in 60 in Sharpeville, South Africa. The world apartheid is coming back. The world trigger happy is coming back. And why it was a mistake also from this respect to a power, a regional power like Israel, that can steal the nuclear archives from Tehran and bring it to Israel,
right,
and destroy the nuclear ability of Iraq and Syria, can handle demonstrations in a different way.
Yeah, something interesting from 1950 from Sharpeville, that now that you mention it, is that the apartheid South African government had actually said that militants were sending innocent women and children to the front line to be massacred. Danny Seidemann, let me ask you about the status of Jerusalem then. This is your speciality. Here we are, where the United States has moved its embassy. We've got other countries like Guatemala, for example, following suit. Is there in your lifetime the prospect of a Palestinian state with its capital in East Jerusalem?
I believe that that is an existential imperative for the viability of the State of Israel, and I fear that I will not live to see it. This evening is the beginning of Ramadan, and 40% of Jerusalem will be fasting Palestinian Muslim Arabs, and they are politically disempowered. They're disenfranchised. You have two national collectives at the epicenter of a regional and global conflict, one of which has all of the political power and the other does not. Jerusalem is not a sustainable city. It is a binational city. It is a divided city. It is a contested city, and the hollow gesture of unveiling a plaque on a building by the United States does not make it less contested, less divided, more sustainable.
Okay, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure talking to all of you. Seth Frantzman, Alon Liel, and Daniel Seidemann, thank you very much for joining us here on the Newsmakers.